Okay, let's start.
Yeah.
The first thing I want to say is that we were actually doing an entire month, the four of us, in various places. So this is a month's worth in 40 minutes.
Or so. Oh,
Of French villages. Can you hear me?
no, you're leaning forward too far. I think, yeah.
Sorry.
Oops, now I can't hear you either.
Just talk normally, I think. Testing one.
Yeah,
two,
testing, 1, 2, 3.
Oh, she's fading. You're kind of fading in and out for me anyway.
Oh gosh, this is frustrating. Get over here a little bit.
We'll get this set up,
There, good, perfect, right there.
hopefully for everybody. All right.
True.
So I wanted, Jim and I do a lot of self-guided walks, and I really wanted to do a self-guided walking tour of French villages. And I'd seen a Rick Steves episode about Alsace, and it just looked incredibly beautiful. So we decided to go there, and we were really happy that our friends Sherry and Ernie wanted to join us.
So Alsace has been caught between France and Germany and fought over by for hundreds of years, and so that's caused there to be a mixture in Alsace of the French, the German, and the uniquely Alsatian architecture, language, and gastronomy. And you'll see that as we go through the slides.
We used Max Adventures to make the hotel arrangements, and they transported our luggage. And they offered this walking tour of what they called the Alsace wine route. And that included 7 nights in 5 villages. And we added on 2 nights in another village, the last village here on the slide. And we walked a total of 25.5 miles through vineyards and villages. And then we ended our walk in what Rick Steves describes as the fairy tale village of Colmar.
Let's focus. Okay, so this is the first village of our walk, Tannenkerk. We have quite a discussion about exactly how to say that, but here's a picture of it taken as we were walking around before the afternoon we arrived there. And we stayed at this hotel here in the bottom right that night. One of the surprising things to me, and I think the rest of us, that we saw when we walked around was this plaque that celebrates the 75th anniversary of the liberation of Tannenkerk from the Nazi regime. And we saw that in a number of the villages that we walked through later, as we could sort of chart how things went by the dates of their liberation.
A lot of the villages were tucked into these valleys, yeah, like that, surrounded by vineyards. Those are all vineyards there. And they seem to grow grapes everywhere, even up the sides of the hills, which you can see over there.
Do I need a point? No, never mind. Yes.
The other pictures are of these shrines, and they were everywhere during our walk, some more elaborate than others, as you can tell, the Jesus on the cross, and then a bunch of other ones. So.
Oops, I'm losing focus. All right, so our first walk was passed by these 3 castle ruins on the hill high above Ribeauville.
We walked through this town gate.
Oh, right here, just right here in the middle.
To get to the first stop on the is the way you pronounce it. It's the oldest medieval town. It looks like a typical half timbered house. And you can see one of the castles that Jim mentioned right there. You can see that up. And that is a picture taken from what they call the Grand Rue, which is more or less the main street in all these areas. And my main memory of Ribeauville is the hour and the half hour all night long.
Well, as I said, we walked through the woods on that first day, but the next day on our walk to Kaisersberg, where we stayed 2 nights, we walked through all the vineyards, over the rolling hills, through the vineyards. And Kaisersberg is up in here, the picture in the upper right-hand corner. And that was a pretty tiring day. It was very warm. But once we got there, and we had that night, and then we had the next day where we got to walk through the town, looking at the sights to see and we stopped at a farmer's market, and then we climbed up the hill to the castle ruin, which has a tower that you can climb up in. And so you see, we climbed up to the top of the tower and to look at the countryside. That's a picture here in the bottom.
Herkheim, it was my favorite village, and I think it might be the other ones too, but maybe because it was really hot. It happened to be the hottest May on record in France. And our hotel in Kirchheim was like the shady oasis. You can see all the pictures there of the courtyard. So we entered through the gate that was over a dry moat that surrounded the town. That's the upper right. And the fountain in the lower is pretty typical of all the fountains we saw in all of the villages. There's actually always a plaque that said whether the water was drinkable or not drinkable.
So we ended our last day's walk at the village of Egashine. And let me tell you, as an aside, we practiced quite a bit to be able to say Egashine, because it was not obviously. And it is an old medieval village. You notice the circular shape. Well, that was based on the town walls, the fortification. And over time, people built their houses up against the wall, both on the inside and the outside. And then after the walls were taken down, that left this narrow cobbled lane that goes all the way around the village. You can see a picture of it on the left.
The Strasbourg was built in 1894. Ninth, who was born there, and that's a statue of him there. And you can see the stiffness on top of the chapel down in that village. Free, yeah, and in Alsace actually. Because they're a single area, they're on, tea towels, keychains, everything. Of course, that's how we communicate. Something that we discovered when we woke us up in the morning.
So then here's Colmar, where it was we stayed 2 nights there. That was it. The Egashine was the end of the walk, and then they gave us a taxi ride to Colmar, and we booked a hotel and stayed 2 nights. And it's full of half-timbered houses, as you can see, canals, beautiful old tent, and then these medieval signs which hung above stores or shops, or in medieval time, before people were literate, that let you find out where you could get a restaurant, or maybe it's a coaching inn or something like that. So that's the hotel. On the bottom left is the hotel where we spent 2 nights. If you ever find your way there, I highly recommend it. Had what we thought was almost the best breakfast buffet of any of the places we stayed. And the bottom right is the house of Bertolli. I can't quite say it right. Say it right?
Bertolli?
Bertolli, who is the person who designed the Statue of Liberty. This is his house, which has now become a museum of his work. And in the courtyard, in the center there, the picture of the slides is a statue that he called the Great Force of the World. And the 3 figures there represent work, patriotism, and justice. And you get an idea looking at these 3 of the difference in architectures between the house, half timbered, very ornate French, some sort of in-between thing on this house in the upper right-hand side. So take it away, Sherry and Ernie.
Okay. I was really amazed in Colmar, and the highlight of the visit there for me, in addition to the breakfast, of course, was going to the Unterlinden Museum. And Colmar is a city village of about 70,000 people. So I was amazed that they had this world-class museum there, and featuring Matthias Grunewald's masterpiece, the Eisenheim altarpiece, which is, I hadn't seen a picture of this since college art history. And it was so recognizable because of the twisted fingers and the sores on Christ's body. This is quite large. It takes up, it goes clear across one of the galleries there. And anyway, it's 8.5 by 10 feet on the center panel, and then there are 9 panels. Anyway, this was commissioned by the monks of Eisenheim, who ran a hospital for skin diseases, one of which was ergotism or St. Anthony's fire. And the people suffering from that disease were supposed to look at Christ's wounds and it to help ease their own suffering, or at least be able to cope with it somehow. Okay, you could go to the next slide. And this is the back of the altarpiece, which is, of course, also beautifully painted. I'm not sure, well, it's obviously the Virgin, a child, and some angels, but anyway, quite beautiful on the back as well. And then we had seen spiral staircases all over France. And these are, Ernie took these pictures of the stairwell at the Unterlinden Museum going up and going down, which are, you know, quite spectacular. Works of art in themselves, I think.
I was really intrigued by this here mural, and it was a kind of a multi-vendor market. And we spent a little time there, but then we found this mural as we were looking for the bathroom, and I just liked it because it was kind of whimsical. Oh, one evening I looked out the hotel window and I was really taken by the light, the play of light on this train station. And it's the original facade, and then it was enclosed in a glass canopy in 2007. And this train station was kind of the ending and starting point for some of our times and little trips spent in Strasbourg. Sherry thinks it kind of looks like a UFO getting ready to take off, but anyways, it's just an interesting picture. And the light was very catching.
So I'll take this. So Strasbourg. Oh yeah, let's see. I lost my place here. All right. Okay. Back. Okay. Here we. All right. I'm getting back. Yeah, right. I just wanted to say before I went on and talked about Strasbourg that the four of us spent a week in Strasbourg. We had Airbnbs, and Sheila and I then spent another week there, so 2 weeks altogether. Well, Sherry and Ernie traveled on there that last week through France, and they'll get to their slides here in a minute. Strasbourg celebrated its 2000th anniversary in 1988. And these 4 pictures here kind of give you a sense of the differences or the things that Strasbourg's gone through the years. You see the half-timbered medieval buildings on the left, along with here in the upper right-hand corner are the fortifications, the remaining towers of the fortifications for the city wall. And down on the right-hand side is the house in the Neustadt,
Right.
which is German for new town, because the Germans took over Alsace after the Franco-Prussian War and built the new town. And then in the lower left-hand corner is the EU Parliament. which gives you a sense that Strasbourg sits in as a large player in the modern world. Here's just some of the different little vignettes as we walked around Strasbourg for a couple weeks. I love these little gargoyles on the bottom top left, bottom right, that flank the doorway into an old building. And then interesting architecture there on the bottom left-hand corner. And then Ernie, like this picture.
Well, I worked for UPS as a mechanic for a number of years, and so I was very intrigued when I saw this, and it was kind of odd because UPS is such a staid conservative company. I was surprised that they could manage to adapt to the narrow streets of an old European city, but anyways, it was quite a novel approach.
Yeah, because we've spent, I think, the majority of our time in Strasbourg, and I'm going off the cuff here, and what's called the Ile de Strasbourg, the island of Strasbourg, which is the old town, the old city with its narrow cobbled streets. Very pretty. So, and on this is the Strasbourg Cathedral, which took, by my note, 24 years to build, to complete. 424. And then the tower, the Lacy Tower there, you can see it's so big. Yeah, I couldn't get far enough back to get a really decent picture of it, which is without that strange perspective. But anyway, for 227 years, that tower was the tallest building in the world. You can tell looking at the intricate detail on in the center picture, the doorway is blown up on the right-hand side. And then here it is even closer. You can tell why it took so many years and generations to complete this edifice. So I'm going to let Ernie pick it up from there.
Well, Sherry and I decided to climb up the cathedral, and as you may have noticed, there was only a single bell tower, and this is picture on the right is that bell tower when we were up on the platform at that level. And also climbing up there gave us quite a perspective and a view of the city and how small the people seemed below us. Now, of course, being mechanically inclined, I was really intrigued by these wheels in the center. I mean, these kind of giant hamster
Roll
wheels.
cage.
In reality, one man walked in each wheel, and they used that to winch materials up to build the towers and stuff. And that was actually the crane and the winch that brought materials up. And then when we started down the cathedral you see there on the top right, there was a person who was hanging on rope and repairing one of the gargoyles. He was actually working on the metal. There's a pliers in his hand. He's working on the metal in that lining that gargoyle. And if you look in the lower right picture, you can see some lines. And so there was a high lead from end to end on the cathedral, and he was hanging off of that. And actually in that picture, he was down on the ground already. And another picture, I was intrigued by the ladder there on the left. It's quite a construction for a wooden ladder, and it was on wheels. You could reach about 18 meters high with that ladder, and I certainly wouldn't want to bend up that high on it. Anyways, enough of that. Now, this astronomical clock is, in some respects, the most sophisticated in the world. This clock dates from 1574. The cases were retained, but the clock was rebuilt from 1838 to 1842. And it's John Baptiste
Vilga.
There you go. Thank you, Sherry. Thank you, Sherry. He saw the clock not running as a 9-year-old child, and he told his mother he's going to fix that. And he actually did get the job to fix it, but it was not until he was 50 years old. After learning clock repair and several other disciplines, he spent 30 years designing mechanisms for this clock. And then after he got the job, he spent a year training the 50 workers that helped him repair the clock. This clock shows the time, position of the 6 visible planets, the day of the week, the day of the month, and compensates for leap year. It also calculates the date for Easter. And it shows the sun and moon with enough precision that it will show the eclipses within a matter of minutes of the actual occurrence of the eclipse, yes. And each day at 12:30, there are 2 carousels at the top that proceed around. The top one is the apostles preceding in front of Christ. They actually turn and bow in front of him and get a blessing. And then towards the end of that, there's the cock on the top left that flaps its wings and crows 3 times. It's quite an elaborate mechanism, but the mechanisms that some of the replicas of the mechanisms and stuff, it's just, I can't conceive of somebody putting the effort into calculating, making a mechanical, it comes down to a mechanical computer to demonstrate all these things. But it's very sophisticated and very impressive.
Oh, I would want to point out that this is in the one corner of the Strasbourg Cathedral. So deep into it, I didn't realize until now that you might not know where that is.
Good point.
So, so here's just a couple of pictures, 3 pictures of various internal parts of various churches throughout Strasbourg. We had our fill of churches, I'll tell you.
But this was our favorite church. And we call this the Church of the 19 Doors, but it's actually known as St. Paul's Lutheran Church. So it was built for the Lutheran members of the German army. It was continuing to the night it has doors as they gave it to the military, all the way from the emperor, who gets the front door, to the lowest ranked person who gets the back door.
And I took this picture on the right. This is door number 12, just to show that they are, we walked around it one time and tried to count them all, but they are numbered.
The 4 of us took a day trip by train to Nancy, and this is called the Place Stanislav. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. So when you look at these incredibly ornate gilded ironwork, you can tell that this is definitely a French place, and it's never been a part of Germany, except for that really bad time in the 1940s.
So this is the, in the upper left-hand corner is the arc, the triumphal arc, excuse me, arch.
Jim?
Triumphal. Yeah.
Here's in the chat, people are having trouble hearing Sheila. I don't know, are you having trouble hearing me as well?
No, I'm good.
Okay, but in the chat, a couple people mentioned that they were having trouble hearing Sheila, and we are as well. I think it's just when you lean forward that it's
Okay.
When you lean to the right, people can hear you. There you go.
Get over
That
there,
works.
Anyway,
Sorry.
sorry to interrupt.
Anyway,
Turn the camera.
all right. So, all right. So, oh, here we go. Okay, sorry about that. Thanks everybody for.
Oops, now you're getting muffled, Jim.
Now I leaned forward.
Yeah.
So I'm going to just sit back here like this and say, in the upper left corner is the triumphal arch that leads to the palace of the Dukes of Lorraine. Here in the lower right-hand corner, we visited Nancy on a very hot day. And as you can see, that's a long, long walk from the arch and we were looking for any place, for a cool place to sit down in the shade and have our picnic lunch, but this was not the place. But while we were there, Ernie took a picture of this. Apparently all these people who, I don't know, parking fines or whatever. You want to say anything about that?
Well, I just was intrigued because it was a very inaccessible place for the wrecker. And I was very intrigued. They actually hooked to the wheels, and this crane just simply picked the car out of the absolutely inaccessible place and put it on the truck and drove off. And when that was driving off, I saw another one driving down the road with a car on it too. I wouldn't want to illegally park there.
We were so fascinated by this that I swear we stood there for 10 minutes and watched them
Yeah.
do this.
But eventually we did find a park and a nice cool bench to eat our lunch, and then we made a new friend who came by and wanted to share our lunch. All right, oops, now I've lost focus. Let's see, click there. All right, and then this on our way. Anyway, before we left Nazi, we did discover the gates of the old city. They're dated from 1336. Here's the, and I'm still puzzling to this very day by this sculpture of the flying cow, the cow with wings, with a sash around it. It was outside on this pedestal out front of a church, along with the usual lions and angels and that sort of thing, but I don't know. Flying cows. So anyway, now this is up. This is Ernie and Sherry going to share their travels.
Okay, so now you have to give me permission to share the screen or
Oh, I
share
have to
the
stop.
screen?
Yeah, there we go. I stopped.
Okay, so let's see. So then I get something. Oh, host disabled screen sharing. Okay. Oh, no, the host needs to enable participant screen sharing. Okay.
Yeah, I just made you a co-host, so you should be
Okay.
able to share now.
Okay, thank you. Oh dear. Oops, I better close that, whatever that is. Let's see. So let me see, because I'm not seeing my own screen. This? No. What the heck? I'm not seeing my own screens.
Have you hit share screen?
Yeah, and I'm getting somebody else's screen. Well, it says it's not. I can't see all of my screens. Let me see if I go. Oh, okay. Let me see. Oh, here. All right. Now I got to come back to Zoom. All right. Now maybe this will do it. There. Okay. Good. I was getting nervous there. Anyway, oops, I gotta move this so I can get to this. Oops. Okay, there. So we went to, oh yeah, Ernie's gonna talk about Carcassonne. So take it away.
Anyways. Well, Carcassonne is a walled medieval city in southeastern France. The restoration of this city began in about 1850 and was mostly completed by 1930. The restoration is somewhat controversial, as some of the features were totally lost and the architect made some assumptions on how it was to be rebuilt. And one of the
Oh dear, sorry.
one of the things is these conical
Sorry.
roofs.
Okay.
And my interest in Carcassonne arose from my interest in the Cathars and the Albigensian Crusade, which was from 1209 to 1229. An early search for understanding led me to Gnosticism and early church heresy. The beliefs of the Gnostics and the Cathars seem similar, though there is no known connection between the two groups. The Cathars were also an heretical group. They espoused, following the example of Christ, they called themselves good Christians, but did not recognize Christ as the Savior and were not subservient to the Pope. And that's what got them into the crusade. When Carcassonne fell, it was one of the first victims of the crusade. The Cathars were forced out without clothes. Later, in other castles in this area, they were slaughtered and burned to the death. After the success of the crusade, the remaining Cathars were tracked down and if they did not recant, were killed in what became the Inquisition. There is a museum of Inquisition in Carcassonne. Let me go to the next slide.
Oh, shoot, it's not going, it's not, oh, there. Okay, I guess I'll have to use the pad instead. of that.
Anyways, but you actually, we had actually a lot of nice views from the walls and other areas, but the bridge with the two arches in it is replaced the drawbridge, and I believe that the structure there in the middle picture was the one that would have held the mechanism to draw the drawbridge up. And being kind of an engineer and stuff like that, I was quite intrigued by the structure they built into the top of those conical roofs. And that was really, I just snapped a picture of that, and I was just out of curiosity, I just was impressed with it. That's all we to say about that. Well, I should say that the size of the city is 1.2 kilometers around it. And I forgot to mention that. But as we were walking around it, one of the views is of this Basilica of Saint Nazare. It began as a cathedral, and the Pope blessed the materials in 1096. It was completed in the 12th century, and it's quite unusual because around the end of the 13th century, it was reconstructed in the Gothic style. So you have the Romanesque end and the Gothic end on the other, and even you can see that in the picture on the lower right. You can see the different view of the Romanesque end and the Gothic end, and then even in this chapel you have a Romanesque end and a Gothic end. And I'll let you advance the slide. And here again, this is an internal view, and of course in the top left you see the Roman arch that you could see up internally, and then I took a panoramic view of the apse end or whatever.
And the rose windows.
But anyways, the rose windows, and then this in the center there, that center tall window is considered to be the it was, I think, from 1280, and is one of the oldest windows like that in southern France. And that was our view. It's a good view for leaving the Carcassonne and heading out to the caves. Okay.
Peche Merle is kind of hard to get to. It's off the beaten path, and we in looking at blogs before we were going on the trip, we saw that, well, this was a cave that you could just miss because it wasn't that great. But truly, it was the first one we saw, and after we'd seen several others, this was like, wow, this was one of the best. It's one where you can actually see the paintings in situ, and there are replica paintings in the museum. The cave itself is a geologic wonder with very high vaults and beautiful limestone formations. And I wanted to point at, the tour is about 45 minutes long, and you see mammoths, horses, bovids, and reindeer. And I wanted to point out in this painting here, you can see where the artist used the contours of the cave to enhance the form of the painting and the form of the painting of the animal. And this is quite common throughout many of the cave paintings in the other caves in the Weser Valley. And this you can see is an etching of a reindeer, and often these etchings were behind the paintings, and some of the etchings you don't see except with blue light or engravings. I don't know, etching engravings. Anyway, here in this circle is a negative handprint. Oops, sorry. I don't know if I can go back to that. Anyway, it didn't. Yeah, there we go. Anyway, a negative handprint, and there with this dotted pattern that we'll see again. Anyway, at the end of the tour is really the high point. These spotted horses painted 25,000 years ago, and the paintings in the entire cave were painted between 25 and 16,000 years ago. Anyway, this leopard complex that you see on the horses, I wanted to show them in situ where you can see the stalactites, stalagmites hanging down, and some of the features of the cave. Anyway, and this is more close up, but this spotted leopard complex, there was some speculation as to whether that was animals they actually saw or whether that had some symbolism for them. But there is that complex present in the DNA of ancient horses, so they may have actually seen these horses. And there are also these wonderful negative handprints, and Peche Merle seemed to have more of them than anywhere else did, which, and of course, holding their hand against the wall and spraying pigment around it through a hollow bird bone. And it's, to me, they were like signatures of the ancients and quite fascinating. And then this is the village of Alsace. It's about 1,000 people and receives 1 million visitors a year. And it's kind of a stepping off point for many of the caves in the area. And you'll notice there are a lot of limestone cliffs with structures built into them. And also this limestone overhang that's above the main road into the village. One of the features there in Alsace is Abri du Cap Blanc, and it's a bas-relief sculpture of horses that are life-size. And of course, we don't have any pictures of the actual one, but you do see these horse heads and the bodies as well. And this was an artist's rendering of what it might have looked like when they were creating the sculptures. And one of the caves is supposed to be the best because you also see the actual paintings is Fond du Gaume. And I worked really hard to get tickets for an English tour of this, which we got, but you only see about 1/3 of the paintings, and you do walk underground quite a ways to get to these paintings. So really, we thought Peche Merle, of all the caves we saw, was really the most fascinating and definitely worth seeing. And then Lascaux, I guess they say Lascaux. There's several. The cave itself was closed to the public in 1963, and there are, I believe, 4 replicas or 3 replicas. Lascaux 2 was the first one, and it's the most that's like the original cave because you walk in and it's just so fascinating, the colors and these horses overhead and these bulls overhead. It's amazing. And I came out babbling about, oh my God, I can't imagine how wonderful it must have been to discover this and be able to see the actual cave. But anyway, they have made another replica of it, which Ernie's going to talk about a bit.
Well, this short section reveals the mechanics of constructing a replica cave. The last one, Lascaux 4, is the result of laser scanning, and then it's fiberglass and steel construction, and then many artists hired to duplicate the painting. We've been assured repeatedly that they didn't enhance the colors, but it's hard to believe that the real thing actually looks like that, but you're no longer allowed into the real thing. Anyways, this is just a short section. It was actually in one place they let you, after you went through the cave, you came out and you looked back, and you went in like a cave opening, you look back and you could see you just walked through a tunnel in a building, but you thought you were in a cave. I mean, it was done very well.
And these are some aurochs or precursors to modern cattle. And again, the just fascinating color, the shading, perspective, techniques that were lost and not really discovered again until the Renaissance, as I've been told. Anyway, and then some more horses and reindeer, and again the colors, shading. I don't know. I'm very fascinated by all these paintings. And here's one of the human forms, which is really so just a cartoon, and kind of amazing. There are very few human shapes in the caves in the region, and this one is extremely crude, as you can see. And here are some of the pigments and tools. Red and yellow ochre and manganese were the primary colors used. And then these lamps, these are replicas, of course, but there were examples of these found in the caves with burn marks on them. And they used a juniper wick to reduce the amount of smoke as they were painting. And then here's some tools: brushes, crayons, bones, engraving tools, and even stencils. All quite fascinating how these artists worked. And then Alsace itself had a very great natural history museum. And this was a woolly mammoth inside there. After you go through the museum, you walk out and you're under one of the over limestone cliffs and looking out over the village. And then of course they have this silly looking ape-man statue that really isn't quite representative of the people who lived here in thousands of years ago. Then we went on for the final 2 days of the trip. We went to the Loire Valley and this Chateau Villandry, built in the 16th century. It was confiscated during the French Revolution, and Napoleon acquired it for his brother in the 19th century. The Carvalho family bought it in 1906, and an American heiress, Anne Coleman, who was married to Joachim Carvalho, provided the money for the restoration. And the Carvalho family still owns it and resides in part of the chateau. Villandry is known primarily for its gardens, especially it's especially cool that its vegetable gardens are as beautiful as the flower gardens. And you can see these are vegetable gardens, but they're quite ornate as well. And just some of the interior: dining room, kitchen, and flowers everywhere, beautiful arrangements and orchids throughout the tour.
Well, since we were in Amboise, we went to where Leonardo da Vinci had lived. And this Clos Luz was a gift from the King of France in 1516 to Leonardo da Vinci. And this is the house he lived in. That's the bed he lived. He slept in, and he died in that room there in 1519. He spent 3 years there, and it was very productive time for Leonardo da Vinci. And it said that he designed this garden in the right. It's actually a park and grounds. You walk around, and there is a museum, and there are numerous constructions of Leonardo da Vinci's inventions. And so that was actually the last place we spent before we went to get our COVID test.
All right, I will stop sharing. Okay, back to Sheila and Jim. Hello.
Maybe they're struggling like we did.
Yeah, or maybe so. Oops.
Guys, mute. I'll unmute, and I'll share that. And so here we go. So we have a few more. Come on, there we go. We have a few more cities that we visited. Heidelberg. We went to Heidelberg on. It was a difficult train trip. Had a couple transfers that were not obvious for non-German speakers, but we started our trip going to the old city gates, what you see on the right-hand side. It goes across the bridge to the other side, and then we walked up the Philosopher's Walk up the hillside to get this view of the Heidelberg Castle and the lower left-hand corner. Enjoyed walking around, then back down to town, had lunch, enjoyed walking around, and stumbled into this church on the upper left-hand corner, where I have a picture there in the upper left, which was such a delight after all those gloomy, gray, Gothic churches that we had been in so far. So next one.
So we went to Fryeburg, which is in Germany, and it's a university town also. And the town center is a part of a UNESCO heritage site. And fun fact, Fryeburg was mistakenly bombed by the Luftwaffe in 1940. They didn't do too much damage, but killed 57 people. And however, the British bombed the town in 1944, and the only building that survived was this cathedral in the middle here. So the town gate is on the left, and the rest of these old buildings, we just took a picture of one, are actually a reconstruction. And we found the town gate reconstruction. I wondered if McDonald's sponsored it, but probably not. But.
Okay, and then we also took a train up to Basel one day, and walking around town, we stumbled across this fountain with all these figures that are from Holbein paintings. It's a very pretty fountain. In the 1400s, Basel started putting out city water fountains. This is an example of one of the early ones, and up here on the top is the Basel basilisk and the city shield. Just a little street view of Basel, and then in the upper right-hand corner is the Rhine River. You can swim in the Rhine River. Say that 3 times fast. You can swim. I won't try. You can swim there because the Swiss had started something called their city swimming program. So they cleaned up all their rivers so that you can swim in them. And finally, here is a reconstruction of a medieval castle done in the while the Germans owned Alsace. It was sort of an example of German Romanticism in the Victorian era. You'll see the paintings here in the banquet room, and marvelous work on stonework on the masonry on the internal. Anyway, it's very pretty, and well, and it's turned out to be a great tourist attraction in modern France now. So, any questions?
Do we have time for the food?
Or is everybody
Sure.
gone?
It's only 7 till 8.
Yeah,
Is there
we're a
anybody
little
left
over our
here?
time, I think.
Talk about food.
Okay. All right. So we divided this up into Alsatian gastronomy and French gastronomy. We actually ate some,
Most of these things.
I think we ate all of these
Yeah.
things. Different people ate different things. We all ate the tarte flambée, which is a big Alsatian thing. Everybody says you need to do that. You know, you can get Muenster cheese in I'm leaning forward again. You can get Muenster cheese in the store here, but it is not at all like the Muenster cheese there, which is kind of stinky and just really lovely. And
It's not as, this seems to be a hard cheese here in the States, but the Muenster there is much
yeah,
softer.
softer, yeah.
All the French cheeses seem to be soft, even the cheddar
So-
are spreadable.
And
Anyway.
and another big thing there is the sauerkraut with 5 meats, which Ernie ate. Ernie, can you tell them about that?
Well, I didn't eat all of it. And some of it I like better than other parts. That's all.
In the upper left-hand corner is this Alsatian stew. Really, it's cooked with wine. It's what you would consider to be a stew, but you know, with the Alsatian twist. And then the Kugelhof, which is this baked dessert. We had one. Of course, it was probably at a crappy buffet, and it was kind of dry. But
A good buffet.
it was at the good buffet.
Yeah.
Apparently, Kugelhofs are dry. And then let's go on to the next one. Does this do? Oh, I lost focus again. There we go. And then, of course, we can't end without something about French bread. The best bread in the world, something.
And we did try snails, but I was kind of looking forward to taking them out of the shell, but they had already shelled them for us. And I tried pate. I think we all had a taste of it, but Ernie and Sherry are the ones who ate the gizzard salad.
Yeah, that was in Carcassonne, and we had this wonderful meal, very good price. You know, it was 3 courses, and the first course was it was Sala Jazir or something. We had no idea what it was. Anyway, it came with this big pile of gizzards, sliced gizzards on it, duck gizzards, because ducks are like, they raise a lot of ducks around there.
Well, I would say that as a child, I remember gizzards didn't taste very good, but the gizzard was fine. But I mean, we actually had a meal and there was like a third of a pound of gizzard on this salad and you just.
Yeah, and you were still gonna have chicken and stuff.
The flavor was fine, but it was just too much.
Yeah. Lots of chewy gizzards.
All right. Any questions? How do we do this?
Anybody out there? Let's put it back to, here we go, gallery view.
Patty,
And
Karen?
let's see.
I'm just laughing about the gizzard salad still, sorry.
Yeah.
My mom was
somebody-
into all sorts of that kind of stuff. You
Yeah.
bet. Oh, no. I thought maybe it was a translation issue. Whenever we were in France, I'd like, oh, I know that word. That means chicken. But the words around it, which maybe meant gizzard or liver, I could not translate, and I got a lot of chicken livers. Is what I got.
Oh my gosh. I
Anyway.
used Google Translate. You know,
Ugh.
any meal was started before we even, you know, if there weren't any English translations underneath the French, then we had to run Google Translate to figure out what the heck it was. Great food though. Even when we went to the little grocery store, even the carrots, which you get here, are kind of woody, but it's all very good. It's really good.
I noticed in the chat that someone asked, what is the scale on the clock? And I assume that means the height of it. And I don't know.
Well, I
It
don't
was
know.
huge.
No, it's.
Well, yeah,
multi-story.
that was my, yeah. How tall was it? Was it, you know, how
30
many
feet, maybe?
feet
I
or
don't-
floors? Was it like 3 floors tall?
Yes. Well.
Okay, wow.
It's big, very, very big. Yeah. It
In
was hard
fact,
to
I
get
think,
it all in a picture.
yes, that's why I went with that Wikipedia picture done by a professional. Yeah. There's a little staircase built into it on the right-hand side for people that are, here, let me see if I can find it.
Yeah, I wondered if that was a staircase or just a decorative. That was pretty amazing.
Yeah, there it is.
You see this over here?
Yes, this is a staircase for you, so people can, a spiral staircase, get
Yeah.
all the way up
People.
here.
For people, okay, all
and
right.
Maybe they're unsticking well, they'd have to dust it, wouldn't they? Otherwise it would get terribly dusty and dirty all the way up there. But
I had a picture with people standing in front of it and I mean, there's a guardrail there and the guardrail's about eye level or something like that.
yeah, I would say that the top of a person's head would be about here.
Something
Mhm.
like
So
that.
it's 1, 2, 3, 4, it's hot, fourth person. Well, okay, anyway, there's another chat. Let's see. You're welcome.
Yes.
Thank you, Dennis and Sharon.
Be well. All right.
Well, you all